Hello there, welcome back. And I'm going to talk about Gangs of London, which is a Gareth Evans produced TV show. I'm only going to talk about the first season. I've only seen the first season. I'll get to the second season at some point. But this is only the first season, really, I'm going to talk about. Because I don't think Evans was is involved in the second season. I don't know at that time, but I feel when he was doing a film, not doing the second season. But a lot of the people who were in the first season just continued on. But I know he didn't direct any of the second season. The first season he directed the pilot plus episode 5, plus he did some of that, all of the action scenes. So he was well known to be very involved in the first season, and you can tell the action in this show is really something, really brutal. Every time there's a fight, you're gonna have a good time if you like a good fighting scene in a show, because they do treat it like it's a movie. They don't treat it like it's just a TV show. It's like, we will be brutal with this. We will show you lots of blood. And that's kind of the charm of it, is the fact is it just stays brutal. The thing of the show is it's 9 episodes and there's lots of really cool ideas in it. But every so often it does go to TV plotting, which is, I kind of focus on it as convenient plotting that's going towards setting up a season 2 or a continuation of the story, rather than trying to bring it together. So that's the film. So this show has a much more fun first half than second half. Second half, there's still a lot of good stuff in it, but there's a certain point in the episodes where you do get a sense of, okay, we're setting up for season 2 in some ways now. And if it was just a one season story, they would be starting to bring things to a close instead of trying to open up, so there's more to be able to be done further down the line. And it's a bit obvious at times when they're doing that. And one thing I find about TV shows is like they tend to blow the second half of the show a lot more, because they tend to have to do a bit like that, and it's unsatisfying because you want a narrative, and a lot of times they do things that make it less satisfying as a story, just because they're trying to set up a character for season 2 or the next season if they're further down the line. So there's a lot of limitations. Like they're going towards something that's not an ending. They're going towards something that's kind of half an ending and half something else. So you don't have the impact of an actual ending. And that's why I have problems with TV shows generally, is like, sometimes they can do it. I mean, something like Deadwood or The Wire, they knew how to do an ending where it's an ending, and then we'll do the next season and we'll build from what was there. But we still give you an ending. It's satisfying. We still pay off all the characters, and then whatever's left, that's where we start the next season. This one is much more like, no, we compromise some of the dramatic beats in the second half to get to an ending. And we put the probably one episode too long. It feels like there's an episode there that you don't need, which is mainly made up of the stuff you need to actually get to an ending that can go further on. So that's the biggest downside. But the upside is that it's really a lot of fun. The characters are good, the situation's good, the action's terrific, and it's not just tied to like one character. There's lots of characters, but there's 2 central characters. One of them is Elliot, played by Sophie Kinshu. I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm terrible with his name. Then Joe Cole plays Sean Wallace, who's the other guy. Sean's the guy who is with the family who run London. He's the heir apparent, and his father has just been killed in the first section of the opening episode, and so they're trying to figure out who killed his father and why. And the Elliot character is like an undercover cop who's trying to get further up in the industry to try and get the information on the gangs to get him arrested. But obviously, because he's undercover cop, he has to compromise himself in lots of ways to try and get into the inner workings of the group. And there's it's a morally dubious area. Which is the interesting part, really, is the fact is it's these two characters who, one of whom is the heir apparent, who doesn't really only have wants, and half of his heart's in the gangster life, not half of his heart's a builder. He likes to build things, and he's kind of half and half, and he's been torn apart by what happened to his father. And the interesting thing is when you find out what actually happened with his father and the reasons for it, they could have told him this is what happened, and they might not have had all the bloodbath. But because of the rationality of human beings, they might still have had it. Because the show actually is pretty honest about that. The idea is like some things are inevitable just because of people are people, and the kind of vendettas and rage that some people have just generally might cause havoc no matter what. But it's a situation that tears apart so many people just because of human emotions. So they're always talking about the logical reason why things are done. And there is a logical out for why things happen in this show, but a lot of it's based on emotions and lots of based on things that can never really be made sense of. See, so on one hand, you're going towards a plot with logical progression, but on the other side, you've got this idea that life's irrational and things happen and people react irrationally in ways you never imagined. So for the first two thirds, it's a very satisfying mix of these two tensions. It's just when you get into the final third, when they're setting up for to move on to a second season, that's when the rationality becomes a bit more contrived, and it's like I don't buy some of this. There's bits to buy, there's other bits is like I don't get it. It doesn't feel like the characterization you built earlier will lead to this. So there's elements of that in the film or in the show, but it feels like it's a long film, really, because there's only a few directors involved in it, so it is a kind of fairly tight production, and there's a certain set of characters that through the whole story. So you call Meanie as the guy who gets killed. So you flashbacks of him throughout, where you find out more and more like he really wasn't worth all this anger at his death. He really wasn't worth it. His wife, played by Michelle Fairley, who's trying to hang on to her family, but also she's a lot tough when she lets on. You've got the younger son who's the parent. You've got the older son who's gay and a drug addict, who's a lot kinder than most people in his family. You've got a daughter who's of the family who is walked away from them. You've got the extended family of so Irish and black characters who are the center of the story, and the other characters, black characters, they come up with Wallace's. They were basically the right hand people of Wallace's, and they basically get just as much power as Wallace's and just as much money, and they're entrenched in, and they're the ones who have been more really compromised by certain backers and doing things they don't want to do. But it's also a suggestion that maybe they're into this more than they let on. Maybe they like this life more than they really want to tell you they like. And that again makes for interesting drama. This idea that maybe the people aren't as loyal as they sprout about. They have compromises, you know. And the fact that they're lying a lot, these characters lying a lot, means that things happen because of a lot of lies to protect themselves, that if they'd been truthful, they could have solved a lot of their issues, like really early on. And there's that sense of constant compromise throughout the story leads to more and more damage being done. At least the characters doing actions that they wouldn't have done otherwise because they didn't have the information they need to have because no one's honest with them. So that kind of stuff keeps on going throughout the story, and that kind of works. The violence that leads from those decisions is pretty stunning most of the time because you see how ruthless every character is. And when you get to the action, this is people trying to survive. This is not like stylized action. This is the people either try to kill somebody or try to survive a murder attempt. There's no niceties. It's brutal violence throughout. You know, everybody in the show is capable of horrific violence to other people. There's no niceties involved here. They're all capable of being horrible people. Again, that's what's enjoyable about it. It's the idea is that everybody has a limit here, and then they go full feral. And some people are, you know, barely need an excuse to do the most horrible things possible. So you've torture scenes, you've got massacres, you've everything. This is like buildings blown up. This is just full on brutality. When they say it's a gangster story, they mean it. It's a gangster story. There's lots of stuff that happens here that's pretty brutal. So it is a very enjoyable show. It's only 9 episodes, which means you can get to the point and get in and get out. It also means they can do side episodes. Like there's a middle of the season, they stop and they go back to a character point that came in the pilot, and then you see what happened to these other characters who haven't been in the show for a few episodes. And what happens there is just as brutal and horrific as anything that happens within the main show. And it's really worth basically doing a sidetrack to this one episode, and you find out a lot more about what's been happening parallel to what you've been watching. There's things like that that work really well. And the intercutting between the characters works very nicely as well, because they always seem to know when to cut away from someone, when to give you some space. So it keeps it going. They always know how to end episodes and how to keep you interested. And there's always a sense of always building towards something horrible going wrong pretty soon, like consistently throughout the stories. The only time it doesn't happen is in the final episode, where again they're leading to a compromise for a second season, and it's far less satisfying. Even though the main idea behind it is good, it's the way it's executed. Just as like you need more of a definite ending, and then build from that. And this one just seems to be a bit more foggy in a way that's just doesn't quite work. But Gangland is definitely worth seeing if you like, brutal action. It's definitely enjoyable. So I'm not going to go any further. I don't want any spoilers or anything. But it's definitely worth a shot. If you like the Gareth Evans films, like the Raid 2, you're going to enjoy this. So that's me for now. I'll be back soon with another one. Bye.